Part 1. The lonely hatchling space station called Harmony's Edge floated in the darkness between stars. It was massive, like a small city made of metal and glass. Thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds lived there together. They shared the same air, walked the same corridors, and tried their best to get along. The station was built for peace. It was built for friendship between species. But not everyone found friendship there. Kiraveth was 8 years old, and she had never had a friend. She was a Draconari, and that was the problem. Her people looked like the dragons from old human stories, though she did not know this yet. She had scales that shone like polished copper in the light. Her eyes glowed with a soft orange fire, like embers that never went out. Small horns curved back from her head, and when she opened her mouth, you could see teeth that were sharp and white. She had wings, though they were still too small to carry her. And she had claws that could cut through metal if she was not careful. Even at 8 years old, she was taller than most adult beings on the station. She would grow much larger. Her mother stood 3 times the height of a human, and her father was even bigger. The Draconari were an ancient race. They had ruled star systems when other species were still learning to make fire. They were powerful. They were proud. They were feared. And fear, Kiraveth had learned, was very lonely. Every morning, she would walk to the station's learning center. The corridors were wide and filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. There were the Villani, tall and thin with skin that glowed soft blue. There were the Krithiks, who looked like insects but thought like poets. There were the Torvani, covered in thick fur with kind eyes and gentle ways. There were dozens of others. They all moved aside when Kiraveth walked past. They did not do this to be polite. They did this because they were afraid. She could see it in their eyes. The way they looked away quickly. The way parents pulled their children closer. The way conversations stopped when she entered a room and started again when she left. No one was rude to her. No one said mean things to her face. They were too scared to do even that. They just avoided her, like she was a storm they needed to shelter from. The learning center had a play area. It was a beautiful place with soft floors and climbing structures and games from 100 different worlds. Every day, Kiraveth would finish her lessons and go to the window that looked out at the play area. She would watch the other children run and laugh and chase each other. She would watch them build things together and knock them down and build them again. She would watch them argue and make up and share their snacks. She would watch them be friends. She never went inside. She had tried once when she was younger and did not understand things yet. She had walked into the play area with hope in her heart. She had walked toward a group of Villani children who were playing with colorful blocks. She had opened her mouth to ask if she could play too. They had screamed. They had actually screamed and run away, leaving their blocks scattered on the floor. A Villani mother had rushed in, scooped up her child, and looked at Kiraveth with wide, terrified eyes. No one had said anything. No one had to. Kiraveth had understood. She had picked up the blocks, placed them neatly in a pile, and walked away. She never tried again. Her mother found her crying that night. Kiraveth had tried to hide it, because Draconari were supposed to be strong. But her mother had heard the soft sounds through the door, and she had come in and wrapped her great wings around her daughter. "Little Flame," her mother had said, using the name she only used when they were alone. "Why do you weep?" And Kiraveth had told her about the blocks, about the screaming, about the look in that mother's eyes, about how much she wanted someone to play with just once, just for a little while. Her mother had held her tighter, and Kiraveth had felt the rumble of a sigh in that great chest. "This is the burden of our kind," her mother had said. "We are Draconari. Our ancestors conquered worlds. Our fire has ended wars and started them. When other species look at us, they see all of that history. They see the power we hold. They cannot see past it to see us. This is the price we pay for what we are. But I have not conquered anything, Kiraveth had whispered. I have not hurt anyone. Why are they afraid of me? Because they are afraid of what you could do, what you might do. They do not know you, little flame. They only know what you are. Then, how will they ever know me if they will not come close enough to learn? Her mother had not answered that question. Perhaps she did not have an answer. Perhaps she had asked the same question when she was young and never found one. We do not need their games, her mother had said instead. We do not need their friendship. We are dragons. We have each other. We have our pride. That must be enough. But it was not enough. Kiraveth did not say this, but she felt it in her heart. She loved her mother and her father and her people. But she wanted more. She wanted to know what it felt like to have someone choose to be near her. Not because they were family. Not because they had to. But because they wanted to. Because they liked her. Because they saw her as something other than a monster to fear. So she found her own place on the station. A quiet spot on the observation deck where you could see the stars stretching out forever. She would go there after her lessons, while the other children played without her. She would sit by the great window and watch the lights in the darkness. Sometimes ships would pass by, coming or going to places she would never see. Sometimes she would press her clawed hand against the cold glass and pretend the stars were friends, who were just too far away to reach. The void of space was cold and empty and endless. But somehow, sitting there alone, it felt less lonely than being surrounded by beings who would not look at her. She was 8 years old. She was a dragon. And she had accepted, in the quiet way that children accept terrible things, that she would always be alone. She did not know that everything was about to change. She did not know that somewhere in the galaxy, a ship was flying toward the station. And on that ship was a species she had never met, and a child who would ask her a question that no one had ever thought to ask. But that was still to come. For now, she sat by her window and watched the stars and wondered what it would feel like to have a friend. Part 2. The strange new species. The humans arrived on a Tuesday. Kiraveth did not know what a Tuesday was. Her people measured time differently. But she would later learn that humans gave names to their days. And they had arrived on the day they called Tuesday. And somehow that small silly detail would always stick in her memory. She heard about them before she saw them. The whole station was talking about the new species. Humans, they were called. They came from a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. They had only recently learned to travel between stars. They were new to the Galactic Coalition, and this was their first diplomatic mission to a major station. The other species did not seem very impressed. They are so soft, Kiraveth heard a Krithix teacher say. No shells, no scales, no armor of any kind. Their skin is like paper. And so short-lived, a Valani merchant added. They only live for 80 or 90 cycles. Some of them even less. How can they accomplish anything in such a brief time? They have no natural weapons, someone else said. No claws, no venom, no fire. How did they even survive on their own planet? Kiraveth listened to all of this from her usual hiding spot near the botanical gardens. She had found a small alcove behind some tall purple plants from a world whose name she could not pronounce. No one ever looked there. No one ever looked for her at all. She was curious about the humans, despite what everyone said. Or maybe because of it. Here was a species that everyone thought was weak and small and unimpressive. Here was a species that no one was afraid of. She wondered what that felt like. The day they arrived, she went to the docking area. She stayed far back, hidden in the shadows of a support pillar where no one would notice her. A crowd had gathered to watch the humans come off their ship. It was not a welcoming crowd. It was a curious crowd, the way people might gather to look at a strange animal. The human ship was small and simple. It did not shine like Draconari vessels. It did not pulse with living light like Vellani craft. It was just metal and engines and determination. Kiraveth found herself respecting that. They had come all this way in that simple little ship. They had crossed the darkness between stars because they wanted to see what was out there. The airlock opened, and the humans came out. There were about 20 of them. They came in different colors, which surprised Kiraveth. Some had pale skin, some had dark skin, some were in between. Their head fur came in different colors too, black and brown and yellow and red. They wore clothes that covered most of their bodies, and they walked on 2 legs, and they looked around with wide eyes that seemed to want to take in everything at once. They did look soft. They did look small, but there was something in the way they moved. They did not creep or shuffle or try to make themselves invisible. They walked forward like they belonged there, like they were not afraid, like the whole galaxy was a new room they could not wait to explore. And then Kiraveth saw the child. She was small, even for a human. She had brown head fur that stuck out in all directions, like she had been running and forgotten to fix it. She had dark eyes that were big and round. She was missing some teeth in the front, which made her look a little silly when she smiled. And she was smiling. She was smiling at everything. The child held the hand of a taller human, probably her mother. She was pointing at things and talking fast. Kiraveth could not hear the words from so far away, but she could see the excitement. The child was excited about the lights on the ceiling. She was excited about the Krithix guards with their shiny shells. She was excited about the big window that showed the stars. And then the child looked toward the pillow where Kiraveth was hiding. For a moment, Kiraveth was sure she was invisible. The shadows were deep. The pillar was wide. No one ever noticed her when she did not want to be noticed. But the child saw her. Those big dark eyes locked onto Kiraveth's glowing ones. And the child did not look away. She did not flinch. She did not scream or hide behind her mother or do any of the things Kiraveth expected. Instead, her smile got bigger. Her eyes got wider. She raised one small hand and waved. Kiraveth did not know what to do. No one had ever waved at her before. She stood frozen in the shadows, her heart beating fast, her claws gripping the edge of the pillar. The child was still looking at her, still smiling, still waving. Then the child's mother tugged at her hand, pulling her along with the rest of the group. The child went, but she kept looking back over her shoulder. She waved again, just before she disappeared into the crowd. And then she was gone. Kiraveth stood in the shadows for a long time after that. Her mind was spinning. What had just happened? Why had that child waved at her? Why had she smiled? Did she not know what Kiraveth was? Did she not understand that she was supposed to be afraid? Maybe the humans really were different. Maybe they were too new to the galaxy to know the old stories. Maybe they did not know about the Draconari conquests and the wars and the fire. Maybe, to that small child with the messy hair, Kiraveth was just something interesting. Something new. Something worth smiling at. Kiraveth walked back to her spot on the observation deck. She sat by her window and looked at the stars. But for the first time in a long time, she was not thinking about the cold darkness between them. She was thinking about a small wave and a gap-toothed smile and a feeling in her chest that she did not have a name for. She did not know the child's name yet. She did not know anything about her except that she had messy hair and missing teeth, and was not afraid of dragons. But somehow, in that single moment of being seen, of being waved at like she was just a person and not a monster, something had changed. A tiny crack had appeared in the wall around Kiraveth's heart. It was so small that she barely noticed it, but it was there. And in the days that followed, that crack would grow. Because the child with the messy hair was going to find her again. And when she did, she was going to ask Kiraveth a question. A simple question. The kind of question that only a human child would think to ask, and nothing would ever be the same. Part 3. Do you like to play? 1 week passed. Kiraveth tried to forget about the human child. She told herself it did not matter. She told herself that one wave meant nothing. The child was new. She did not know any better. Once she learned what the Draconari were, she would be afraid like everyone else. But Kiraveth could not stop thinking about that smile. She went back to her normal life. She went to her lessons. She sat alone in the back of every class. She walked through corridors that emptied as she approached. She ate her meals by herself in a quiet corner of the food hall. She went to her spot on the observation deck and watched the stars. Everything was the same, but something felt different. That little crack in her heart had not closed. If anything, it had grown a tiny bit wider. She found herself looking for the human child in crowds. She found herself wondering where the humans lived on the station. She found herself hoping, even though she knew she had not hoped. It was a warm afternoon when it happened. The station had an area called the Central Gardens. It was a big open space with plants from many different worlds. There was an artificial sun in the ceiling that gave off gentle heat and light. There were benches and paths and little streams that made peaceful sounds. Most beings went there to relax. Kiraveth went there to be alone. She had found a bench in a quiet corner, far from the main paths. No one ever came there. The plants around it were thick and tall, and they blocked the view from the rest of the gardens. It was her secret place, even more hidden than the pillar at the docking area. She was sitting on that bench, practicing her fire control. At noon, this was something young Draconari had to learn. Their fire was powerful, and it could be dangerous if they did not learn to control it. She was making small flames dance between her claws. Orange and red lights flickered in the air, spinning and twisting like tiny living things. It helped her feel calm. It helped her feel less alone. She was so focused on the flames that she did not hear the footsteps. She did not notice the presence until a shadow fell across her claws and the fire. She looked up. The human child was standing right in front of her. Kiraveth's flames went out instantly. Her heart stopped. The child was so close, just 2 steps away. She could see everything now. The messy brown hair that still stuck out in all directions. The big dark eyes that were watching her with wonder. The missing teeth that showed when she smiled. And she was smiling, just like before. "Hi," the child said. Her voice was high and clear and completely unafraid. "I'm Maya. You're a dragon, right? Like from the stories?" Kiraveth could not speak. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. This was not possible. Children ran away from her. Children screamed when she got too close. Children did not walk up to her and introduce themselves and call her a dragon like it was the most wonderful thing in the world. "I am Draconari," she finally managed to say. Her translator device turned her words into human speech. It sounded flat and mechanical. "Not a dragon." "You look like a dragon," Maya said. She said it like it was a fact, like arguing would be silly. "Dragons are my favorite. I have books about them. I have toys of them. My dad says they're not real, but I always said they could be real somewhere. And here you are." She spread her arms wide when she said this, like she was presenting the greatest discovery in the galaxy. Kiraveth felt something strange happening in her chest. The crack was spreading. Light was coming through. "Why are you here?" Kiraveth asked. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" "Mom's in a meeting," Maya said. She did not seem worried about this. "The station helper is supposed to watch me. but I snuck away. I wanted to find you. Find me? Yeah. I saw you at the dock when we first came. You were hiding behind that big pole thing. But I saw you. I waved at you. Did you see me wave? Kiraveth nodded slowly. I saw. I looked for you everywhere after that. But you're really hard to find. Where have you been hiding? Oh, wait. Is this your secret spot? Sorry. I didn't mean to find your secret spot. But also I'm not sorry because I wanted to meet you. She talked so fast. Kiraveth had never heard anyone talk so fast. And she did not seem to need answers before asking more questions. She just kept going, like a river that had found a new path to flow. Why did you want to meet me? Kiraveth asked. It was the question that had been burning in her mind for a whole week. Maya tilted her head to the side, like this was a strange question. Because you looked lonely. And also because you're a dragon and dragons are cool. But mostly because you looked lonely. You were hiding in the shadows all by yourself. That made me sad. Kiraveth did not know what to say to this. No one had ever looked at her and thought she was lonely. They thought she was scary or dangerous or proud. They did not look past those things to see the loneliness underneath. But this small human child, who had known her for exactly 5 minutes, had seen it right away. Most beings are afraid of me, Kiraveth said quietly. They run away. That's dumb, Maya said simply. Why would I be afraid of you? Because I have fire, and claws, and teeth. Because my people have done terrible things. Because I could hurt you. Maya thought about this for a moment. Then she shrugged. You could hurt me, she agreed. But you're not going to. I can tell. You have nice eyes. Scary people don't have nice eyes. And then she asked the question that would change everything. Do you like to play? Kiraveth felt the world stop. The artificial sun kept shining. The little streams kept making their sounds. But for her, in that moment, everything was still do you like to play? Such a simple question. Such an easy question. The kind of question that children asked each other every day, all over the galaxy. But no one had ever asked her. In her whole life, no one had ever thought to ask. They assumed she did not play. They assumed she was too dangerous to play with. They assumed she did not want to, but they never asked. Her voice cracked. She felt heat behind her eyes, and she realized with shock that she was about to cry. I do not know any games. Maya's face changed. Not to fear or pity. Her eyes went wide with a kind of delighted surprise, like Kiraveth had just given her the best present in the universe. You don't know any games? Oh, this is going to be so fun. I can teach you everything. Do you know hide and seek? Tag. Make-believe? I'm really, really good at make-believe. We could pretend we're space pirates. Or explorers. Or, she gasped so loud that Kiraveth jumped. You could be a princess dragon, and I could be a knight who's actually your friend, and we fight bad guys together. Kiraveth stared at her. This tiny human child with the messy hair and the missing teeth and the endless words was standing there, offering her a gift she had wanted for her whole life. Friendship, play, someone who wanted to be near her. I would like that, Kiraveth whispered. Maya grabbed her clawed hand without any fear at all. Her small fingers could barely wrap around one of Kiraveth's fingers, but she held on tight. Come on, Princess Kira. The evil space pirates are getting away. We have to stop them. And she pulled Kiraveth off the bench and into the gardens and into the first game of her entire life. And Kiraveth went, not because she was being dragged, but because for the first time ever, someone wanted to play with her. The crack in her heart split wide open. And what came pouring in was joy. Part 5. What Humans Do the Grand Assembly. Hall was the largest room on Harmony's Edge. It was where the leaders of all the species, came together to talk about important things. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. The floor was made of polished stone from 100 different worlds. Thousands of beings could fit inside, and today, it seemed like all of them had come. 1 year had passed since Maya had asked her question in the botanical gardens. 1 year since Kiraveth had learned what it meant to have a friend. And now, because of what had happened in the corridor with the Villani teenagers, everything was changing again. The news had spread across the whole station. A Draconari child had used her fire to protect the human child. She could have killed the Villani boys, but she had not. She had controlled her power perfectly, scaring them away without hurting anyone. It was a small event, really. Just children being children. But the galaxy could not stop talking about it, because it should not have been possible. The Draconari were not supposed to have human friends. Humans were not supposed to walk up to dragons and ask them to play. Children were not supposed to change things that had been true for thousands of years. But somehow, in the space between hide and seek and make-believe, 2 children had done exactly that. Kiraveth sat in the assembly hall with Maya beside her. They were in the front row, which was terrifying. Everyone was looking at them. But Maya held her hand, and that made it bearable. Up on the great stage, Kiraveth's mother was about to speak. Ambassador Vethkira was magnificent. She stood 3 times the height of most beings in the room. Her scale shone like burnished gold. Her eyes held the fire of 1,000 stars. When she spoke, her voice filled the hall like music and thunder combined. "We have underestimated humanity," she said. The hall went quiet. The Draconari were the most powerful species in the coalition. When they spoke, everyone listened. We saw their short lives and thought them brief. We saw their soft bodies and thought them weak. We saw their lack of natural weapons and thought them harmless. We saw everything that they did not have, and we dismissed them. Many species made this mistake. The Villani, the Krithiks, even the Tavani, who were known for their wisdom. We all looked at humans and saw nothing special. She paused. Her great eyes found Kiraveth in the crowd. "We were wrong." A murmur went through the hall. The ambassador continued. "The humans have a gift that we did not expect. They are fearless in ways that we cannot understand. Not fearless in battle. Many species have warriors who do not fear death. Humans are fearless in something far more difficult. They are fearless in connection." She gestured toward the front row. 1 year ago, a human child walked up to my daughter and asked her a question. A simple question. The kind of question that children ask each other every day. "Do you like to play?" 5 words. That is all it took. 5 words to do what 1,000 years of diplomacy could not. Maya squeezed Kiraveth's hand tighter. "My daughter was lonely," the ambassador said. Her voice was softer now. She was 8 years old, and she had never had a friend. Not because she did not want one. Not because she was cold or proud or dangerous. But because every species she met looked at her and saw only what she was. They saw a dragon. They saw fire and claws and teeth. They saw the history of our people, the wars we fought, the worlds we conquered. They did not see a child who wanted to play. She took a breath. Even the great ambassador Vethkira seemed to be struggling with her emotions. But Maya saw her. This tiny human child, who had never heard of the Draconari before, who knew nothing of her history or our power, looked at my daughter and saw something none of us had seen. She saw a person. She saw a friend. And she was not afraid. The ambassador turned to face the whole assembly. This is what humans do. They look at the void between species, and they do not accept it. They build bridges, not with technology or weapons or political tricks. They build bridges with games, with laughter, with questions like, "Do you like to play?" They refuse to let fear decide who is worth knowing. They refuse to believe that anyone is beyond connection. Kiraveth felt tears running down her scales. She did not try to stop them. Beside her, Maya was crying too, but she was smiling through the tears. I have spoken with the human leaders, the ambassador continued. I have watched their children on this station, and I have seen something remarkable. Everywhere they go, they connect. They make friends with species who have been enemies for centuries. They ask questions that no one has thought to ask. They treat the strange as wonderful and the frightening as fascinating. They see the galaxy not as a collection of threats to manage, but as a neighborhood to explore. She spread her great wings, filling the stage with their shadow. The Draconari formally endorse humanity's full membership in the Galactic Coalition. Not because of their technology, not because of their military potential, not because they have anything we need. We endorse them because they have reminded us of something we had forgotten. Her voice rose to fill every corner of the hall. Even dragons deserve friends. Even the most powerful and feared beings in the galaxy are still people who want to be known and loved. Humanity has shown us that connection is possible where we thought it was impossible. And if they can befriend dragons, there is no limit to what they might achieve. The assembly erupted in noise. Applause and cheers and the sounds of 100 different species expressing surprise and approval. But Kiraveth was not listening to any of it. She was looking at Maya, who's looking back at her. We did it, Maya whispered. We changed things. You changed things, Kiraveth said. All I did was learn to play. Maya laughed and hugged her, not caring that the whole galaxy was watching. Years later, they would still be together. Admiral Maya Chun would command the first joint human Draconari fleet. Wing Commander Kiraveth would fly beside her, the most famous dragon in the galaxy. They would explore new worlds and meet new species and have adventures that would make their childhood games seem small. But it all started here, in an assembly hall full of species who had forgotten how to connect. With a speech from a dragon mother who had watched her daughter learn to laugh again. With two friends who had proven that the universe was less frightening than everyone thought Dot in the years that followed. The phrase "Do you like to play" became famous throughout the coalition. It was what humans said when they met new species. It was not really about games. It was a promise. A way of saying we see you. We are not afraid. Let us be friends. And slowly, species by species, world by world, the galaxy began to change. Enemies became rivals. Rivals became neighbors. Neighbors became friends. Not because of treaties or trade or the threat of war, but because somewhere, a long time ago, a human child had refused to believe that anyone was too strange or too scary to play with. That was what humans did. They connected. They reached out. They built bridges across the void. And it had all started with 5 simple words, spoken by a gap-toothed girl with messy hair, to a lonely dragon who had never had a friend. Do you like to play? The answer, it turned out, was yes. For dragons and humans and every other species in the stars, the answer was always yes. They just needed someone brave enough to ask. Part 4. The fire and the fury. 2 months had passed, and Kiraveth had learned many things. She had learned that tag was a game where you chased each other and tried to touch. She always caught Maya within seconds because she was faster and bigger. But Maya taught her that sometimes you were supposed to let the other person almost catch you, because the chase was the fun part. So Kiraveth learned to run slower. She had learned that hide and seek was a game where one person closed their eyes while the other person hid, and then you tried to find them. Kiraveth was terrible at hiding. She was too big for most hiding spots, and her scales reflected light, and her eyes glowed in the dark. But she was wonderful at seeking. She could track Maya by smell and sound, though she pretended not to, because finding her too fast made Maya pout. She had learned that make-believe was the best game of all. In make-believe, You could be anything. Princess Kira and Knight Maya had saved the galaxy at least 50 times. They had fought space pirates and evil robots and a giant monster made of shadows that could only be defeated by friendship and also fire. They had explored strange planets in their blanket fort spaceship. They had found treasure and rescued prisoners and made friends with every creature they met. And through all of this, Kiraveth had learned the most important thing. She had learned what it felt like to have a friend. The station talked about them. Of course it did. A dragon and a human child playing together like it was the most normal thing in the world. At first, people were confused. Then they were worried. Some of the humans tried to tell Maya's parents that she should not spend time with such a dangerous creature. Some of the other species whispered that the Draconari girl was going to hurt the human eventually. It was just a matter of time, but Maya's parents watched their daughter come home every day with stories about Princess Kira, and they saw how happy she was, and they said nothing against it. And Kiraveth's mother watched her daughter laugh for the first time in years, and she held her tongue as well. Whatever doubts they had, the joy was too real to deny. The trouble came on a quiet evening in the lower corridors. Kiraveth and Maya were walking back from the botanical gardens. They had spent the afternoon inventing a new adventure. This time, Knight Maya had to rescue Princess Kira from a tower made of poisonous vines. Maya had used a stick as her sword and declared herself the bravest knight in all the stars. Kiraveth had pretended to be trapped and called for help in her most dramatic voice. Now they were tired and happy, making their way through the less used corridors that led back to the living quarters. Maya was on Kiraveth's shoulders, which was her favorite place to be. She called it dragonback riding. She held onto Kiraveth's small horns and pretended she was steering. They turned a corner and found the path blocked. 5 Valani teenagers stood in their way. They were tall and thin, their skin pulsing with a pale blue glow that Kiraveth had learned meant anger. She recognized one of them, a boy named Theravel. His younger sister had been in the play area that day, years ago, when the children had screamed and run from Kiraveth. "Well, look at this," Theravel said. His voice was cold. The little human and her pet monster. Kiraveth stopped walking. She could feel Maya's hands tighten on her horns. "Let us pass," she said quietly. "Playing with the beast, little human?" Theravel continued, ignoring her. "Don't you know what her kind has done? They burned the Valani colonies on Threshold. Killed thousands. My grandmother lost her parents in those fires. But I guess humans don't learn history." Maya's voice came from above Kiraveth's head. It was smaller than usual, but not scared. That was a long time ago. Kira wasn't even born yet. She didn't hurt anyone. "She will," Theravel said. "It's what they do. They pretend to be peaceful, and then they burn everything. You're just too stupid to see it. That thing you're riding? It's not your friend. It's a monster wearing a child's face." Kiraveth felt her fire stir in her chest. She pushed it down. She had learned control. She had worked so hard to learn control. But the words were like claws, digging into her heart. Monster, beast, thing. She had heard these words before. She had heard them her whole life. But she had never heard them in front of Maya. She had never had to see her friend learn what the galaxy really thought of her. "She's not a monster." Maya's voice was stronger now. Kiraveth felt her small friend slide down from her shoulders and land on the ground. Before she could stop her, Maya had walked forward and planted herself between Kiraveth and the Valani. She was so small. She barely came up to Theravel's waist. Her hands were balled into fists at her sides. Her messy hair was sticking up worse than ever. "She's my best friend," Maya said. "And you're just mean because you're scared of her, and that's stupid. Because Kira's the nicest person on this whole dumb station. She's never hurt anyone. She plays games with me and she's funny, and she knows all the stars and she makes little fire butterflies when I'm sad. You don't know anything about her." The Villani teenagers laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of people who were about to do something cruel. "Move aside, little human," Therivel said. "We're not going to hurt you. We just want to teach your monster a lesson about knowing its place." One of the other Villani reached for Maya. Maybe he was going to push her aside. Maybe he was going to grab her. Maybe he was going to do something worse. He never got the chance. Kiraveth did not decide to use her fire. It just happened. One moment she was watching someone reach for her friend, and the next moment the air was full of flame. A wall of fire roared to life between Maya and the Villani. It was not hot enough to burn them. Kiraveth had that much control. But it was bright and loud and terrifying. She stepped forward, putting herself in front of Maya. Her eyes were blazing like twin suns. Her voice came out deep and resonant, like thunder in a cave. It was the voice of her ancestors. The voice of dragons who had conquered worlds. "You will not touch her." The Villani stumbled backward. All of their cold confidence was gone. They saw what everyone had always seen when they looked at a Draconari. They saw power. They saw fire. They saw something that could destroy them without effort. They ran. The corridor was empty and quiet. The flames died away. Kiraveth stood there, shaking, horrified at what she had almost done. What if she had lost control? What if her fire had been too hot? She could have killed them. She could have hurt Maya. This was why everyone feared her. This was why she was always alone. Because she was a monster, and monsters could not be trusted. And sooner or later the fire would come out and small arms wrapped around her leg. She looked down and saw Maya hugging her as tightly as she could. The little girl was crying and laughing at the same time. "That was so cool," Maya whispered. "You're like a superhero. You saved me. You're the best friend in the whole entire galaxy." Kiraveth sank to the ground. She wrapped her wings around Maya, creating a warm, dark space where it was just the two of them. The shaking did not stop, but something else filled her chest. Not fear, not shame. Something warmer. "I was so scared," Kiraveth admitted. "I could have hurt you. I could have hurt everyone. But you didn't," Maya said simply. "You only scared the bad guys. That's what heroes do." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in wings and warmth. And Kiraveth understood something that her mother had never taught her. Being a dragon did not mean she had to be alone. Being powerful did not mean she had to be feared. She could be strong and gentle. She could have fire and friends. She could be everything her ancestors had been. And also something more. She could be Kira, who played games and made fire butterflies, and had the bravest best friend in all the stars. And that was better than being a dragon who conquered worlds.